So I think it's about time Microsoft figures out what exactly they're doing here when it comes to their first-party releases. And what I mean by that is it's very clear that they are not tied to their hardware or their Xbox console in the same way that we see Nintendo or Sony tied to their systems. And, well, today they took one more step in that process of seemingly going multi-platform just about across the board. While they're not to that point yet, it does kind of feel like they're on a crash course with that now. And to me, they may as well go all in because their messaging has just been all over the place. And you know what? I think there's actually a very positive outlook even if they do go that way, especially for, well, at least one side of Microsoft, but we'll go over that here today. So if you guys enjoy the video, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and if you're unaware, which you've probably seen that today, we did get the release date here for Indiana Jones, December 9th, 2024. I was expecting December. I think we kind of talked about how November was filling up, and it seemed pretty obvious that it was probably going to end up in December if it was going to make it out this year. December 9th, that's basically the cutoff just about. You don't want to go too much later than that because then you start running up to like the late holidays, Christmas time, right? And anyone who wants to go out and maybe pick up a copy to put under the tree or gift and stuff, there you go. You want to at least have it in stores by then, or in this case, on Game Pass, so you can pick up a card and put that, I guess, in the stocking or something. Either way, December 9th, Xbox Series X, S, Steam, and of course through Game Pass. But as expected, because Nate did put this out on Twitter X the other day, that it would be going to the PlayStation 5, and they made that announcement in what was a very nonchalant way. It was, all right, so we talk about the one more thing at different shows. While technically this wasn't the one more thing, it was pretty close because they had done the whole reveal for Indiana Jones. They showed off some new footage, which the game looks awesome. I'm very excited to play it. And then after doing the release date, they said, oh yeah, there's one other surprise that Machine Games wanted to share. And it was the announcement that it was going to the PS5 spring 2025. The game is coming out on Xbox in December, which tells me this is like a 4 or 5 month window from releasing on Xbox, then going to the PlayStation 5. That's not a lengthy timed exclusivity period to the point where it's like, okay, what? Why? I guess for the holiday season, okay, sure, it's Indiana Jones is specifically then on Xbox and specifically on Game Pass. That is still supposed to be Microsoft's big push right now, is their subscription service, although they've been struggling just having growth from that. Almost like the Xbox console is probably one of the best ways to get people to sign up for Game Pass, and that seems to be declining year over year consistently based on Microsoft's own financial reports. Nonetheless, here it is on PlayStation 5 in 2025. I ran a poll on the main Spawnwave channel asking what people were going to do when it comes to Indiana Jones, where they were going to play it, where they were going to pick it up. And the majority said they were going to wait for it to come out on the PS5, if indeed it is coming out spring, as we're seeing here, first half of 2025. And obviously many other people said they'll just pick it up on Game Pass. So the PlayStation side is technically going to be buying it then outright for, what, $70 here? So in Microsoft's mind, okay, well, we can put it on Game Pass. We can get whatever subscriptions we can there for that timed exclusivity period, and then we'll sell it later on the PlayStation 5. So in their mind, it's more revenue that we would have been leaving on the table, because I don't know if Microsoft believes that their console is just so unappealing that no matter what they do in terms of software releases, they won't be able to sell more of them or turn it around. That is kind of astounding to me, because they went through an era where they had the Xbox One on stage, and it felt like Don Matrick did everything possible to botch that launch. And they still managed to get to a position where they turn in a respectable, we'll say, 57 or 58 million or so systems for the Xbox One sold. The Xbox Series is, I don't think it's going to get to that. It's right now seemingly around half, maybe a little more than half of the Xbox One. And the Xbox Series is just a better system outright. Even if I know, of course, it's more powerful. I just mean in general, it's just a better made system. I think the OS has been refined to the point where it is a bit more streamlined and it's better getting you into the game, and there's no TV stuff. And I think the foundation is just significantly ahead of the Xbox One. But they don't feel like they can sell systems like we see Sony or Nintendo. And Phil Spencer himself mentioned even if Starfield was like a 10 out of 10 or 11 out of 10, people aren't going to sell their PS5 to get the Xbox. Really, his mindset should have been maybe they'll buy an Xbox 2, or just an Xbox as well, I should say. And here's the situation we're now finding ourselves in with Microsoft. It does feel like internally at Xbox, they don't even really know what they're doing necessarily. Well, I mean, they know what they're doing, but they feel like they're very indecisive at times, and things just change in a couple of months' time. So, like, for example, when we had Phil Spencer telling us about the 4 games, remember they held this whole emergency podcast, business update for Xbox, and they sat there and told us about some of the games that were going to go to other platforms. Well, Phil himself said they're not Starfield or Indiana Jones. Technically, he's correct that the 4 games that went over were not Indiana Jones or Starfield. But what the message this sent was back in February, they were not planning on Indiana Jones going to PS5. That's at least the mentality. It's like, okay, those they are keeping on Xbox. All right, so it makes sense. I should be getting an Xbox and investing in that ecosystem. But then you see just 6 months later or so, all of a sudden the PS5 logo pops up, and it's like, hold on, is that something that changed like randomly as you guys were just kind of going along for the last few months? Because even last year with the FTC, people brought up documents showing that the original discussion with Disney was that it would be multi-platform. Because remember, they came in and bought Bethesda, right, in ZeniMax, and they apparently reworked the deal so that it would only be on Xbox and Game Pass and PC. And now it appears it's changed once again, now back to multi-platform. So, I mean, it's very, very strange stuff happening there, and it does look like, from the outside looking in, that there are different factions within Microsoft trying to get their way or show that theirs is the correct way, with things like Satya Nadella seemingly looking more towards, hey, I don't get console exclusivity. It doesn't make sense to me. Let's just sell to as many people as possible and put it everywhere. Whereas I'm sure Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond, they understand, or Matt Booty, well, it's always been in this space, you make good exclusive games to sell your hardware. That's just how it's always worked. And as you see with Nintendo and Sony, it's worked pretty well basically every single generation for Sony. Nintendo has been hit or miss, obviously, but right now, I mean, they're riding a massive, massive high with the Switch, and they just can't seem to not sell the system. So you see that, and you go, well, let's follow that example. It hasn't been working for them. So the pivot now in this way does make sense for them. And my only issue with them at this point is they won't really go for it. Like, they're not going all in on it. And it seems like they're in this weird half-step territory. Like, they won't go full on with all the different games. And I think if they did, they would just become the biggest publisher in video games. It would be Microsoft. Like, they just control so many properties, and they'd be able to put them on Sony's platform, on Nintendo's platform, and they'd be able to take advantage of the user bases there that are very, very large, and all of a sudden, overnight, probably jump ahead, not only ahead of Sony, but might even make more money than both Sony and Nintendo combined, like just gross revenue. That would not shock me at all if they just went, all right, yep, they're just everywhere. We're going to put it on our Xbox system. Whoever wants to buy it, great. We make enough money. We're just going to keep creating hardware for the people that want to buy here. And we're also going to allow things like Steam to be available because, oh, wait, that's right. Sony's games are also on Steam. So guess what? Now, whatever they put on PC, the Xbox just gets. That might be the future for their platform at this point. And maybe they're just content with selling 20 to 25 million consoles in a generation as its peak. But if they're making a ton of money from software, which is where you generally make your money from, they could be a first mover in this regard and go all in on just multi-platform stuff across the board, which, yes, does mean that they would show up with things like Halo, Gears, Forza on PlayStation and probably on Nintendo's next system. And I'm sure that's going to ring alarm bells for a lot of Xbox or longtime Xbox fans and owners. And it very well could backfire, and eventually Microsoft just goes, do we even need hardware? Let's just move off of this. We're only selling 5 million or so of these systems. It could happen. But at this point, Microsoft themselves seem to have put themselves in a situation where they have to figure out how to sell more games, and it seems like going multi-platform for some of them is correct. But how long until that affects just the decision-making process from the consumer to where they just wait for your software to go to other platforms, and then you are unable to sell your software day one outside of people subscribing to Game Pass because people just believe it's going to go to their platform at some point in time anyway? Again, I think them kind of dipping their toe in the water, being unsure, is just not a great strategy at this point. And maybe going into next generation, they revise that and you start seeing more and more of just Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo logos up on their first party games day one. But who knows? Maybe things reverse internally at Microsoft the next generation. They go all in on the hardware once again. I wouldn't necessarily bet on that. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below, because I think this is something that's crucial for Microsoft to figure out, especially if they really do have butting heads within Microsoft at this point. They got to get on the same page, especially with how many intellectual properties, how many companies they control in gaming, and honestly, some of the significant potential they have right now if they really did want to become the biggest publisher in gaming. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.